Well, talking about consumer companies building specifically for India and coming up with a model that the world has never seen before, the 10-minute delivery model. Rahul, is it curtains for that? What do you make of all of this back and forth that's going on?
First, look, we were talking about jobs.
Yeah.
It's a great source of jobs. And I know whether lighthearted or not, I think a lot of people have made comparisons that entry-level jobs in IT pay sometimes lesser than gig economy jobs for some of these companies. And, we are proud investors in Zepto. I think, there are cycles of consolidation. This feels like one of those cycles of consolidation where I think there were a few, you can call it competing priorities at work. And I'm glad I think the competing priorities have arrived at an answer, which looks like the right answer. It works well for the gig workers, it works well for the companies, it works well for the consumers. Now, does that mean that these companies will, shift tracks and become slow delivery companies? No, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah.
But I think it's very clear that they need to, as they become mature companies, they need to balance out all of these stakeholders and proceed.
But effectively, does the business model change? Because A, there is no government mandate. B, there is no government order saying that 10-minute delivery has to end. So does the business model change? Because all that they're saying effectively, and which is also nudging them, is to say, don't promise deliveries in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I think at its core, the business model remains the same. At its core, there is no change. In fact, this is a business model which has not worked anywhere else in the world except in India, maybe Turkey with Getter. It's interesting that we have latched onto a model which has legs, which we believe will carry on for the next decade, right? Now, the interesting thing to do is now, how do you build on that? They move from grocery to now adding electronics, apparel, multiple categories. How do you solve for those problems? How do you solve them in more cities? I think that's going to be the next phase of evolution. At the core, I think the model will remain the same.
But the larger issue, and I want to get the three of you to address that, is the stroke of pen risk much more real today? And how are you viewing that as investors? I mean, we've seen it play out in gaming in 2025. We've also kind of seen it play out now as far as quick commerce is concerned to some extent. We've seen it play out previously on the crypto side. How are investors viewing the stroke of pen risk today?
As I said, I think it's a sign of an evolving and maturing ecosystem. I think that it's good to have the regulatory and governmental oversight. I think good companies always adapt to regulations. I feel that India has got the right level of involved institutions and regulators. And ultimately, as a result of that, the companies and the consumers are better for it.
As the company get larger, they will have a larger target on their back. That's true for this market as much as it's true for every other market that exists. We cannot avoid that. We are in the business of finding the best entrepreneur, and we believe the best entrepreneur have to mature along the company to understand future risks and prepare the company for it. The best founders that we see, what do? They, for example, in crypto or in fintech or in deep tech, they build a body of work to prove that the value they provide to the customer is very, very high. They build a advisory body that can predict risk and try to control it the best they can. They represent the company's interest in the right kind of forums. I mean, this is, again, a sign of a founder maturing. We have a company called Airbound. It is essentially building a consumer-grade delivery drone from India for the world. It's a fantastic company. The founder is 20 years old. When we backed him, he was 17. He's one of the most well-known entities in the...
How does that make you feel, by the way? I've been asking myself that question.
Very old.
You meet these 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds are already on their way to becoming unicorns.
Very energizing.
How does it make you feel?
Yes, very old and very energizing. I feel like I lose half of my age when I'm surrounded by people like him. But I also feel like, oh my God, what the hell was I doing when I was 17? I was not doing anything even close to that. But that's the sign of an ecosystem. That's what you want to see, right? More of these.
I want to ask each one of you this question. Hemant, I'll start by asking you. The one bet that has surprised you, where you perhaps didn't anticipate how big of an opportunity it could turn into, and something that you're kind of looking at today that you believe has the potential to surprise people in the future?
There are so many of them. I get constantly surprised by my partners that make investments that, to me, almost always, often does not make as much sense, but over time it plays out.
Which was the last one that surprised you?
The last one
that blew your mind.
Yeah, the last one I remember was a company called Seco. It's an education platform where people actually go Google up, how do you fill your Aadhaar card address change? And there's a YouTube video specifically for that. It has millions of views. When we invested, on the discussion we had internally is like, why would people want to pay for this? There is so much availability of information on YouTube, and you can Google stuff up, and there is ChatGPT now. But I'm actually quite shocked. They've run up to, more than $100 million run rate in the last 1.5 years of us investing in it. They've raised a Series A, Series B in a quick succession. It just tells you that the depth of the market is just so deep. And if you really provide consumer delight, people are willing to pay for it. And one of the big questions I had was India's ARPU is low and people don't want to pay for stuff that is available for free because they can spend time to get the free stuff instead of spending money to get the paid stuff. But that's shifting.
You know, the question that I asked Hemant, a bet that surprised you and one that you believe will surprise the market.
I think, and you know, Hemant and Rahul talked about the early stage bets. I think the one name that sort of continues to amaze me, and I touched on it earlier, is Pocket FM. I don't know how well you know the company.
I know the company well,
in its simplest form, it's Netflix on audio. It's a new entertainment category that started in India 4 years ago, at 2 million run rate. We're now talking 350 million, and a bulk of it coming from the US. It continues to amaze me how we can innovate like that. It's almost an AI native company now. And I've seen it.
How many languages are they doing today now?
I think it's multiple languages in India. They're adding in Europe,
Latin
America, and it's more than just long form audio. There's other products and I've actually seen it in the last sort of 4 years while I've been at Lightspeed. A company with 2 million going to sort of 350. Continues to accelerate, continues to dominate. A great example of India for the world. And I'm really excited.
So which is the one that you believe has the potential to surprise us?
I think we've talked about the early names, right? Like everything being built by a 17-year-old or a 20-year-old. I think Airbound is exceptional. The founder is exceptional. The reception that he's received in the US, which is not easy because, there you're competing with the best talent globally, has been fantastic.
The payloads that he's talking about and what it does to unit economics, I mean, in terms of freight charges, etc., if it plays out, it's going to be interesting to watch. Your surprise and what is likely to surprise?
See, as an investor, I'll never say I was surprised because I'll say, I always knew. But jokes aside, no, I think Seco is remarkable. At the investment committee discussion, when the firm came in for the first investment, I think many of us were like, how will this work? Will this work? And I think it's positively surprised us. Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things have really worked. They've solved the price point really well. And I think they're creating content that's useful for a consumer. And then I think in a similar vein, one that I'm really excited about is we've got a very young company doing almost daily savings called Bachat. It's like a micro savings platform where you could do like a SIP of 100 rupees every day, almost. Actually, it goes down to 50 rupees a day. And you just see the adoption. They've grown maybe 4 times in the last 6 months. It's almost like the market was waiting for something like this. So I'm very excited about something like that as well. Again, focused on the mass, focused on financialization of savings. Lots of good themes baked in.
Lightspeed's been investing in India since 2007. Anuj, I'm going to start by asking you, what do you believe will drive India, your investments in India, and the India growth story 2026 and beyond?
The investments will be driven by themes that I think are not just unique to India, but where India can be competitive globally. I'd say our investments in AI, to the extent we see the opportunity here, and manufacturing would be, at the forefront of the thinking that we've got, for India. And look, the growth is, as I said, driven both by fundamentals as well as, nuances that exist in India, which is the availability of domestic capital. And, we're very excited to invest behind that.
2025 was pretty much a blockbuster year in terms of IPOs. Do you see that being replicated in 2026?
Absolutely. I see that trend continuing. The pipeline's very, very healthy. We have very good visibility for the first sort of half of this year. As I said, last 2 years were 20 billion IPO years, and I see no reason why we can't have a third.
A third $20 billion IPO year. Rahul, the consensus call on India?
There is no option. India is the only way, and I think we are very strong believers. And I think, like within India, I think where we will invest, the biggest driver of growth for India is the consumption pool. And that is one thing that is not going to change. What will change is how you deal with it. Some of it will be consumer AI. Some of it will be a new retail platform. Some of it will be a new financialization platform. All of these things will subsume, but I think if you look at our GDP, the biggest growth comes from our consumption spend increasing. And as more people enter the workforce, they will spend more. So we've got to figure out, how to lean in on that trend.
Well, gentlemen, it's been fun chatting with you. Thanks very much for stopping by and joining us here in our newsroom. And thanks very much for taking us through what the outlook is for 2026 and the bets that you intend to make. And we look forward to speaking with you through the course of the year. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Young Turks Reloaded. As always, send us your feedback. We always like to hear from you. We'll see you again next week. Till then, from the entire team, goodbye and many thanks for watching.